So, if you have been keeping track of my videos, you would see I've strayed from my history-based content. So to get back on track, with history relating to that review of Kingdom I did a week ago. For the next few weeks I'll be focusing on Eastern history, or at least Japan and Korea's for now. If you remember the zombies were used to fight the Japanese in the Japanese-Korean War, well, now that war is remarkably interesting, with an even more interesting character. But before we discuss the war, we need to discuss the reason for the war, and so to do that we must talk about the leaders of Japan and the time that the Tokugawa shogunate, and to discuss them we need to discuss the Sengoku Jidai. Yes, this is all completely logical, and definitely not because I have been playing way too much Total War Shogun and want to talk about the cool history and stories and stuff. Definitely. So, with that long and quite stupid intro, let's get into the Sengoku Jidai. Our tale begins in the aftermath of the Onin War, the brutal civil war of Japan between two clans that sparked the cause of the complete destruction of the current ruling shogunate, which led to daimyo, who were basically like warlords, dividing the country into hundreds of warring states, which explains why it's called the Warring States period. During this time, the remainder of the shogunate stayed in the nation's capital of Kyoto, and it was every daimyo's objective to take Kyoto and become the new shogun. With this goal in sight, we cut to the small yet influential clans of Oda, the Matsudaira, and the Imigawa. These are three of the most important clans that we'll be focusing on. Our tale begins in 1548. The Oda clan attacks the Matsudaira. They easily brush past the defences, and in the last bit of hope, the Matsudaira formed an alliance with the Imigawa. But it came for a price. The Matsudaira had to give the heir to the clan as a hostage to the Imigawa, but on the way they were ambushed by the Oda, and the son was taken. Now the Oda planned to use the hostage so the Matsudaira would surrender and break the alliance, but this is where the head of the Matsudaira pulled a big brain strat. He went, "Kill my son, it strengthens my alliance. Don't kill my son, I win anyway." This man, just wow. So the Oda had absolutely no idea what to do with the boy and just left him to sit out the war. Which is a weird idea, isn't it? Just this guy chilling on a mountain while there's a massive war raging on. Anyway, later in the war, Oda began to lose, and they decided to get some use out of the hostage. They exchanged the hostage for a castle and the leader of the Oda clan's life. So, the Imigawa got the heir to the Matsudaira and began training him to be an ally. And in 1556, he is sent back to rule the Matsudaira. It also turned out that the Matsudaira boy had a knack for war, and the Oda were pushed back and back, and in the last fortress they prepared to crush the Oda. Now the two armies were camped in two separate areas, and the Oda leader, Oda Nobunaga, was not going to go quietly. And with a force of 2,500 men, he goes for a sneak attack. You see, the Imigawa forces were camped in a gorge that Nobunaga knew well. So with 10% of the enemy's army, he was going to gamble. He gets 500 of his troops to go to the fort and on the top of the gorge, where they pretend it is full to deceive the Imigawa to thinking the entire army is there, and with the other portion of the army, he guides them through a passage into the gorge. Not only will they have the element of surprise, but also the illusion of a larger army in the hill fort. It also seemed nature itself was on their side. A storm blew in and covered the army's approach. Now, since the Imigawa and the Matsudaira had been on a winning spree, they were really relaxed, and even most of the people in the camp were drinking that night. So, as the Oda forces approached, the only sentries were the ones watching the hill fort, which they believed the entire Oda force was fortified in. And with the element of complete and utter surprise, they barged into the camp. It was a complete massacre. People running and dying everywhere. They had no idea what was going on, and the leader of the Imigawa, who was watching it play at the time, thought it was just his units being rowdy, until one literally came in and stabbed him. So, with the Imigawa forces dispersed, either returning to their fields, or just running for their life, and the Imigawa leader dead, the clan fell. And with the Imigawa evaporated, and with this crushing defeat, the Matsudaira leader goes to meet Nobunaga, and since he's a good general, and somewhat of a legend in feudal Japan for his ability to just avoid death, they ally. With this, the tale of Oda Nobunaga and Tokugawa Hideyasu begins.